Hi there, Karen Flaherty here from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well today. And today we're going to be talking about the sun coming into gate 56, which is typically called the Wanderer or the Seeker or the Storyteller. So let's see what this is all about. So as of late in the afternoon on July 18th, the Sunday, we have moved into the gate 56, which is typically called the Storyteller or the Seeker or the Wanderer. So it's kind of got this unusual grouping of titles to it. It's also called stimulation. It's also called distraction. I mean, there are a lot of different names that go with this gate, and it comes right off the top of the throat. So it is about speaking and talking and expressing yourself. And of course, it's not motorized. It's not a motorized energy. It's not connected to a motor. It's just connected to the throat, and it points up to the ajna. So it's right here, pointing up to the ajna, but coming off the top of the throat. And so it does have a lot of different ways of expressing itself. So we'll be talking about that. But in terms of the transits themselves, we've got the gate 56 in the sun. We've got the 60 down here coming off the top of the root center in the earth, in the conscious earth. And so for most of the week, we'll have the chart relatively open, but we do start with the root defined and the solar plexus defined, because the 39 and the 55 is still in. The 39 is in Mercury, and so it's all about provocation again, and it's connected to the 55, which is still in Jupiter. And so we've got a number of we've got this channel of emoting yet again, completely defined and affecting everybody, whether you're emotional or not. So just for example, I have both of these centers open. So usually, and so right now with this transit and this sort of started just on the 17th, it goes through the 21st, where the solar plexus and the root center will be defined again. So after Wednesday, those energies will go away, and then we'll be back to a completely open chart. So unless you have the hanging gates that are defined here, you'll have your chart won't be that affected. But what happens is from now until or yesterday until Wednesday, a lot of people are going to feel emotional who wouldn't normally feel emotional. And so again, we have this kind of seesaw effect, right? Where one week we're emotional and one week we're not, and another week we're emotional, another week we're not. And it goes back and forth, and it can be a little distressing if you don't know what's going on, because I'm sure many people are feeling emotional when they might not usually feel emotional. Even if you're by yourself, you're going to feel emotional. So it can be a little disconcerting. So be gentle with yourself and understand that the emotions that you're feeling are not yours. They're coming from the transits. You don't have to act as a result of those. So as I mentioned, the gate 56 is called a number of different things, whether it's the Wanderer or the Seeker, stimulation in the original I Ching. So the general idea here is that its stability is that you can gain stability through movement and the perpetuation of continuity through the linking of short-term activity. And to be honest, I'm not sure what that means. But generally, I would say be the seeker and not the knower. So it's really about, since this gate is off the top of the throat, leading up to the ajna, some people have the entire channel defined. I have just that one gate, and my husband, just for example, has that gate in his sun. The gate 56 is in his sun. This is the week of his birthday, so he's got it in his sun, and it's if we can be the seeker and not the knower, that's probably some pretty good advice. I heard that recently from somebody. We can think about it as seeking knowledge, wandering to find knowledge, being stimulated or distracted to come to knowledge. But it's really about knowledge. It's about finding what is important to you, finding what makes you tick, finding out who you really are, and then acting upon that, right? As opposed to being distracted and stimulating it and going after things that aren't necessarily for us. The incarnation crosses this week are the cross of laws, the cross of stimulation and the cross of distraction. And in the gene keys, we'll talk about that in a moment, but distraction is definitely the shadow. On the other side, we've got the Earth in gate 60. This is called, in the original I Ching, limitation or acceptance. I like to think of it more as evolution and growth, because the limitations are only there in and just as they are with all of the names in the I Ching and in the original human design, they're there for the not self. They're there for the kind of the lowest level, the levels that we start out at that we don't necessarily want to finish up at, right? And so you might feel like you have limitations in the beginning with the gate 60, but really it's about evolution and growth. It's about finding and seeking, right? That and getting to the point where you know more than you did when you started. So here it's the acceptance of limitation. They say is the first step in transcendence. And in the gene keys, limitation is the shadow, realism is the gift, and justice is the CD. And that might be where the gate of laws or the cross of laws comes in. So I love this graphic that Richard Rudd had for this week for the gene key 56, which on the CD level is called intoxication, where he said inactivity is filled with magic. And what he means by that is that in the shadow, we have distraction, or on the lowest level of this gate, we have distraction, and the gift is enrichment, and the CD is intoxication. So the way he explains it is that in the modern world, we appear almost desperate to distract ourselves from who we really are. So we've got so many things going on, so many, tools and gadgets and technology and activities that fill our lives that we just distract ourselves. We think that the busyness of life is what it's all about. And for some of us it is, but for most of us it isn't. And it distracts us from who we really are. And the funny thing is, Ra always used to say is that we don't like ourselves, but we're disliking the wrong person, right? Because we don't really know who we are. If you don't know your human design, if you haven't really delved into, your personality traits and what's going on and your life purpose and all of that. If you're at that point where you still don't know that, there are ways to find out more. But if you don't know who you really are, then who are you disliking or who are you distracting yourself from? Anyway, the idea is to get to the awareness, the self-awareness, the self-knowledge of who you really are, so that you can get away from the distraction and get more to the inactivity that he's talking about. It's the inactivity, the quietness, the stillness, the questioning from within that actually fills us with magic. And so he also says that the 56th gate knows a great truth, because true enjoyment is really rooted inside your being rather than in the external. So when we can get quiet inside and really know who we are and come to terms with who we are and what we're here for, that's when, again, the magic occurs. And finally, he says that true entertainment involves laughter, inspiration, wonder, and ultimately intoxication. And I love that quote from the Gene Keys book, because when we get to that point, that's when we get the intoxication, right? That's when we're, just think of, a party or an event, or, perhaps it's celebrating you, right? Something that's celebrating you, where you're laughing with friends and family, perhaps, and feeling inspired and feeling the wonder, and ultimately it's intoxicating. I felt this way when I was visiting friends and family up north over the past few weeks. It was really, in a way, intoxicating, whether I was having a glass of wine or not. It was intoxicating just to be in familiar territory with friends and family that we hadn't seen in so long. There was a lot of laughter. There was one editorial I saw called collective exuberance, right? We're just in this period of especially around the 4th of July, and everybody's traveling and everybody's having a good time. It's just this collective exuberance that we had bottled up, right, for the last year and a half. So it's really kind of nice to be able to release that and to be able to experience it and to really feel that in this, perhaps in this week, you'll feel it too. So for this week, we've got a number of people born. As I mentioned, it's the right angle cross of laws, the juxtaposition cross of stimulation, and the left angle cross of distraction. These are people who have been seeking, who have been wandering, who have been finding, and who have been able to get to the point of either, true entertainment or laughter or acting or just kind of taking a wink at life as it is, right? So that they're, some are younger than others. Little Prince George may or may not be at that point yet, but, Gisele Bundchen, Albert Brooks, Woody Harrelson, Jennifer Lopez, they've been on paths, right, that have allowed them to wander, that have allowed them to find themselves perhaps, and to, and then to excel in their chosen fields. So it's kind of a nice thing to see. And then in history, we've got a number of things. The biggest thing I think this week in terms of seeking and finding and actually landing was July 20th in 1969, which is hard to believe. It's already been 60 years since that happened. But the Apollo 11 astronauts made history when they landed on the moon, and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were able to be the first humans to walk on the moon. So that was pretty cool. Also, the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls was held in 1848. The Summer Olympics began in 1980. We'll have the Olympics starting again this week. A story, right? A seeking, a finding, and perhaps a culmination of some people's athletic lives where they are rewarded with the Olympic medals. So those will be starting in Tokyo, but in 1980, they started in Moscow, and a number of countries were absent that time, including the United States. Ironically, in 1967, the Detroit riots began, and I say ironically because in 1868, that same week, and in fact the same day, the 14th Amendment was ratified, granting citizenship to African Americans. That was the first of the 14th, 15th, and 16th Amendments that were granted after the Civil War. So interesting week in history. I hope that you'll be seeking and finding and perhaps wandering a bit, if that suits your fancy, to find what really matters, to find yourself, and to find a way to express yourself in a way that really reflects who you are. So with that, have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.